All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is August 20th, 2022. It is roughly 8:40 p.m. Eastern Time, and we are live here from downtown Miami, overlooking the beautiful downtown Miami skyline. Right in the middle there, you'll be able to see the very famous 1000 Museum building. I'm not too sure what the others are called, but this one is my personal favorite. Let me see if I could point right there. This one. I believe David Beckham has an apartment in there, condominium. And there's actually a helipad on the roof, which is quite crazy. But this is one of my favorite spots in Miami to come to, sort of relax, read, has a beautiful view. Sometimes you could see dolphins jumping in and out of the water. But in any event, anyway, what we will be talking about tonight on the live stream on Walks in Wall Street is this developing trend, which is actually good news and it's bad news. So we're going to go into the good news, we're going to talk about the bad news, but it seems that a lot of U.S. companies or U.S. firms are bringing back jobs to the United States from overseas, and many of these jobs have to do in the manufacturing sector. So what we've seen ever since, well, I think to be honest, we've been seeing this before the pandemic, but once COVID-19 hit, and as we've been having this emergence out of the pandemic, we've been seeing this massive acceleration of companies, especially within the S&P 500, taking control of their supply chains and planning ahead and bringing back a lot of those manufacturing jobs to the United States. Now, this has had a very significant focus on the semiconductor sector. Many people would argue that the particular government subsidy programs, such as the ones that the Biden administration has put into place, are doing a good job of clawing those U.S. manufacturing jobs from abroad back to overseas. Now, I think there's a couple reasons for this. Now, obviously, on face value, we may all think that this is good news, right? More jobs coming back from overseas to the United States. However, there's a caveat here, and I've been noticing something during a lot of the earnings reports that we've been covering and we've been talking about. So for example, out of a lot of the semiconductor earnings reports, Amazon in particular, a lot of the jobs that they are bringing back over the United States, if you look line item by line item, one of the things that these companies are really forecasting to a lot of the analysts is that they are going to be ramping up their investments into robotics and automation. Okay, so if we think about what that means, when companies bring back workers abroad to the United States, they know right off the bat that they're going to need to pay those workers anywhere from 4 to 5 times more. So in order to hedge that situation, what they're going to do is they're going to try to streamline operational efficiencies by increasing research and development, or R&D, into robotics, into automation at particular factories and the like, specifically when it comes to the semiconductor sector. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to go through the good, the bad, the ugly. And then I want to talk about a specific single stock that I've been watching for quite some time. That particular company is called Box, so ticker symbol BOX. I believe they are located in Redwood, California. The CEO, I believe, is Aaron Levy. Now, this stock has been completely dead money for the past, I'd say 5 years. However, this is showing extreme relative strength. It has a relative strength line of about 92. Analysts expect about $1.14 in terms of EPS for 2023. 2024, analysts expect EPS of about 1.43 or $1.43. That's about 34% and 25% EPS growth respectively. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to take a look. Now, this isn't a recommendation to buy anything. This is just, we should be watching this particular company because it does appear to be emerging out of a base that's taken about, over 5 years to build. Revenue growth is growing at high teens revenue quarter over quarter, double-digit earnings growth, and potentially some increases in operational efficiencies here at the company. So without further ado, let's get the stream started. I will say hello to everybody in the chat. Now, it may be a shorter than normal stream, everybody. We are probably going to go for about an hour and a half. But it's a beautiful night out here in Miami. The humidity has broken. It is quite a windy night as well. And I hope all of you had a fantastic weekend so far. Happy Saturday. Hopefully you have fantastic plans for your Sunday. So let's see who we have in the chat team. Let me just put my microphone cord away. Hey, XOXX Bob is here. Welcome. Good to see you. I see FredX. NPC007 is here. Good to see you. Sally Soho is here. Welcome, Soho. Brian is here. Irivas, Tyree, welcome. FredX, Paul Greenwell, Raphael, this is a beautiful view, Tom. Jetstar is here. Bagels and Walks is Tom. It's like I just saw you. Yeah, so so what I think I'm going to do, everybody, from now on is try to at least put out about, I don't know, I think maybe 5 standalone videos just so people can watch them in addition to the streams when you're studying, when you're at work and things like that. And I'll leave up the chat for whoever wants to sort of hang out here. But we are standing right out, I would say directly behind the FTX arena. Looks like there's a lot of fishermen out tonight here in Miami. If you look all the way over there, you can see the main Ferris wheel. My friend, good to see you. Brian says, hello, Tom and everybody again. Dante Rose, welcome. British Gray, Mike Skate TV, good to see you. Willie is here, welcome, Willie. Hemp Lord, Myra King. JC Trade says, hello, everybody. Good to see you, JC Trade. So this is one of my favorite spots in Miami. Sometimes I'll come here to watch the sunset. Very, very beautiful layout that they have here with all the buildings. Wendy England says, I'm going to drink some wine. Is older but better. Love that. Love that. So this is the location where we usually tend to see the dolphins on the stream. So I wanted to stick around here for maybe 15 minutes, maybe less. See if we see any dolphins jumping in and out of the water. Hey, Patrick Bateman. Good to see you, my friend. Sunshine after rain, welcome. Yeah, so I was reading an interesting article today in the Wall Street Journal, and it was so funny because we talk about this oftentimes on the stream with companies, specifically if we think about companies in the S&P 500, they are now completely replanning their logistics and their supply chain, and COVID-19 was pretty much a massive wake-up call for a couple of reasons. Obviously, what we learned is as you shut down an entire global supply chain, it takes a year plus for it to get back to normal. And many would argue that it's not back to normal even yet. So what does that mean? A lot of companies are now planning ahead, and what they're trying to do is get ahead of that situation in case it ever happens again and start to domesticate the supply chain. So we've been seeing a lot of semiconductor companies not only have incentive from the US government to bring back production and manufacturing facilities, fabricators right here in the United States. Also, Apple has now relocated some of their iPad manufacturing centers away from China due to obvious reasons. Now, one of the biggest uphill battles with China in terms of their manufacturing has been their zero COVID policy. So if you remember a couple streams ago when we were talking about Apple's earnings report, one of the things Tim Cook said is the zero COVID policy made some of the manufacturing plants for the iPads in China inoperable for about 20% of the month, which is very, very difficult to run a business that way. So I think what you're going to start to see is companies from all over start to bring back those manufacturing jobs domestically. Now, I think it's going to be good news in the long term for American workers. However, it's important that we be very, very diligent when we pay attention to the research and development budgets of a lot of these tech companies. And what I mean by that is this year, this earnings season, had the most amount of money in research and development go towards robotics and automation tools. So as they bring back those jobs from overseas to the United States, what I think is probably going to happen is over the long term, a lot of those manufacturing jobs are actually going to be given to robots, as crazy as that sounds. So I think we need to be cognizant of that. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the streams, but what do you guys think about that? Are you noticing this trend? Are you paying attention to this trend? And What are you doing to capitalize on it? Could this mean increased operational efficiencies for the business, higher gross margins? Obviously, maybe it's a one-time cost upfront to invest in all of those robotics, but then over the long term, how much do you think these companies are going to save on salaries? How much do you think these companies are going to save on benefits and things like that, right? You don't need to fund a 401k for a robot. So, hey, we have somebody from Taiwan here. This is Hello Tom from Taiwan. Welcome. Good to see you. War Walker is here. Welcome, War Walker. Hopefully you had a fantastic Saturday so far, my friend. Bob is here. FredX. Patrick Bateman says, do you have a business card? I do. Davey Crockett is here. Says, hey, everybody. What's up, Davey? Paul Greenwell. Sunshine After Rain. Exploration is here. Good to see you. Long time no see. NPC 007 says, I hope you have a unit in Brickell, Tom. I do not have a unit there. You know, I think I said this maybe last night on the stream. I'm trying to look for any dolphins. Let me know if you guys see any. I was very tempted to get like a studio or one-bedroom apartment in Brickell or in downtown Miami, but I don't know. I decided to opt for just a standalone property. Maybe it's a little bit easier to rent out and make some money on the cash flows there. Patrick says, may I know the font of the business card? Yeah, if you go to our LinkedIn page, you'll be able to see everything right there. Ryan says, good evening, Tom. Did you see several humpback whales were spotted in the Hudson River? Dude, so I did not see that, but that sometimes happens from year to year. I think when I was back in the city in like 2014, 2015, there were a ton of them, to your point. Davey says, hello, Tom from England, welcome. Willie says, how are the fees? So are you talking about like the HOA fees? Well, I don't think they're as egregious as they are in Manhattan. However, they are quite high. I think a lot of I would say like a studio, one bedroom. Here, I'll give you guys another shot of the downtown skyline. So this is the 200 Southeast Financial Center right here. That's actually where I work out of. And Citadel Securities is now taking over the entire left side of the office. Probably going to be like a satellite operation until their massive facility that Ken Griffin is building is complete. Supposedly they're not even supposed to start breaking ground on that massive office building until I think late 2023, early 2024. So definitely a long ways away, let's just say that. Exploration says, Patrick, he doesn't get the movie. No, I get the movie. I've seen the movie 1,000 times. Yeah, it's all the investment bankers are sitting around the table, bragging about the fonts of their business cards. They're like, oh, I have this font and this font. It's a good movie. Sac City Fish. This is nice view, but I bet it's expensive. Just seen something about New York City rent needing 80 times the rent. Better to buy an RV. Yeah, so I think there's some misconceptions with that. So I think it's good to talk about that tonight. I did see the same CNBC. I saw the same CNBC sort of, I guess you could call it mini documentary. Like they just filmed, they did some interviews about people. So if you want to rent an apartment in New York City, you need to make 40 times the rent, okay? So if the rent is $2,500 a month, you go 2,500 times 40, and that's how much you need to make as your income. Now, if you don't meet that criteria, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get into an apartment. What it means is that you need to find a guarantor that needs to make at least 80 times that rent. Okay, so if you don't make 40 times the rent, you could still get into the apartment, but you just need to find a family member, a friend, usually a parent or something like that, that does indeed make about 80 times the rent, which is still egregious and crazy. But one of the things I noticed, so I want you guys, if you guys haven't seen this yet, I want you to go to, well, I mean, you are on YouTube right now. If you pull up an additional screen and you go to CNBC's YouTube page, I believe they dropped this video today, and it was about two girls trying to apartment hunt in New York City, and they were saying they're trying to find a 2-bedroom apartment, and all the ones that they were looking at were like $4,500 to $4,800, which is crazy. A 2-bedroom apartment for $4,300 to $4,500. But to be fair, and I like to play devil's advocate a little bit. I'm not trying to justify the amount of crazy rent that's going on right now in New York City, but to be fair, if you watch the video, I believe the two girls were like 23 years old, new college graduates, very ambitious, very smart. But a lot of the apartments they were touring, had like a beautiful skyline view of Manhattan. They had a doorman, and I'm like, guys, when you're 23 years old, you could sacrifice, and you don't need to get like the nicest apartment with the doorman. You could open your own door at 23. Okay, I think when you get a little bit older, maybe in your mid to upper 30s, then you could splurge on the building with the doorman. But I think for now, the advice I would give is, if you're in your 20s, open your own door. Okay, you could afford to open your own door, get your own Amazon packages. And I'm not saying that to be snarky. I'm just saying it because you're gonna thank yourself down the line. Okay, when you're 23 to 28 years old, I would even say 23 to 30 years old, you can afford to be inconvenienced. All right, you have the mental fortitude, you have the strength, you have the desire, you have the willpower. You're a kid, you have energy for days. You can be inconvenienced, you can open your own door. God forbid you have to walk up 7 flights of stairs. Just bite the bullet and do it. You can get apartments in New York City that's a 2-bedroom for $3,000. You could split it with roommates. You may be in Queens, you may be in parts of the Bronx, and you may be on a 5th floor walk up, but it's doable. It's still doable. I think a lot of the articles that come out that says the median rent or the average rent in New York City now is $5,500 a month. You could still find deals, but you're gonna have to walk up some flights of stairs. You're gonna have to maybe haul your laundry 2 blocks to the laundromat as opposed to doing it in your own unit. And now I understand the concerns, especially from young women out there, that New York City is getting dangerous, so they can't afford to live in a dangerous neighborhood. And I do completely understand that. But I think that it's still very, very doable to live with roommates and keep each person's individual rent right around maybe $1,500. But just expect you're not going to have a doorman, you're not going to have an in-unit washer dryer. But I guess it all just comes down to paying the price now. Warwalker says, Tom, where do these folks get all this money to pay the rents? Yeah, I mean, it's a big crisis. The rental crisis is crazy, and I don't think it's exclusive to New York City. I mean, it's happening here in Miami too. This is the FTX Arena where the Miami Heat play. City Fisher says, Tom, the documentary said something about you can purchase for what you rent for. I'm not sure. So the video did drop today. I was about to program it into the Nightbot, but I think it's on the YouTube channel CNBC Make It. If you look at CNBC Make It. Hey, Chris Beeman is here. Good to see you, Chris. Welcome. Wendy England says lots of young people want it all when they move out. That's why they're still living at home. Yeah, well, I would just say, because I was 21 at one time, right? We were all 21. And when you're 21, and correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, when we're 21 years old, you think, oh my gosh, when I'm 27, I'm gonna be so old. When you're 21 years old, you think, oh my gosh, that 27-year-old, so old, so decrepit. But then when you actually turn 27, you feel the exact same way. You do the exact same things as when you were 21. So the advice I would give is just sacrifice from the moment you graduate college until you're about 25, 26, and you're gonna be just fine. You could walk up 5 sets of stairs, it's fine. You could open your own door, you don't need a doorman. You could take your own Amazon packages, you're gonna be all right, you're not gonna die. That's what I would say. Hey, Jeremy is here. Good to see you, Jeremy. Penelope is joining us from Tennessee. Welcome. I'll give you guys a shot of the Freedom Tower. This is one of my favorite buildings in the world, actually. I think it represents a lot. 61 says, hello, everybody and mods, and happy Saturday. What's up, 61? Good to see you. Strider 1239 says, there's no point in splurging on rent if you're not going to be there, much besides sleeping and storing stuff. Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, my very, very early years of living in Manhattan, I literally slept in my brother's friend's walk-in closet, and I was never there. I literally just laid down there to go to sleep. I popped back up, threw on my work clothes, and went to work, and got after it. And I could probably assume that 90% of New Yorkers very seldom spend a lot of time in their apartments. You know, because New York City is a blast. You're out, you're having fun, you're hanging out with friends, things like that. Hey, Miss Brown Eyes is here. Says, hello, everybody. Miss Brown Eyes, thank you for joining tonight. Hopefully you are well. Maria is here. Says, hello, Tom from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Welcome. Good to see you. Patrick Bateman says, do you own any real estate? If so, have you considered buying in New Jersey? So I do. I own an investment property here in Southern Florida that I use as an Airbnb. So when I'm in Florida, I have Airbnb guests that stay here. And if I only, so here's the financials, which is actually, it's been pretty good. If I did the math, if I rent out the 2 spare bedrooms in my house for 2 weeks, it'll cover the mortgage, it'll cover the taxes and the insurance for the entire month. If I really want to, 10x it and go crazy and have 100% occupancy and no vacancy, then it's almost going to double the principal, the taxes, and insurance every month, which is good. Have I thought about buying in New Jersey? Actually, yes, I have. I have thought about buying in New Jersey. The reason why I will not buy in New Jersey is just because the property taxes are way too high. I mean, I come from Long Island, New York, where the property taxes are crazy. And I think New Jersey may be a little bit worse in terms of the property taxes than Long Island. Any people from New Jersey in the chat? Maybe you guys could attest to that. Hey, Buy the Book is here. Good to see you, Buy the Book. Welcome. Hopefully you're well. I see Sinjib. Sinjib, happy Saturday, my friend. Thank you for joining. Patrick says you should invest in Fort Lauderdale and Clearwater, Florida. So I was looking at a couple properties in Clearwater. That's on the west coast of Florida. I decided not to do that. But yeah, Fort Lauderdale is a fantastic location. I'm about equidistant between Miami International Airport and Fort Lauderdale Airport, so I could fly into either or. QBiz is here. Says, hey Tom, welcome QBiz. Yeah, QBiz says, I feel high school great in my late 40s with no complaints. Yeah, I think it's just younger people are very, very short-sighted, right? And I think that if every young person just had a little bit of an older and wiser person to sort of talk some sense into them and say, look, you're coming out of college, you're making a decent living for the first time in your life. You can live below your means for 5 years. You don't have to spend 50% of your take-home pay on rent. And even though the rental markets are crazy in New York City and in Miami, trust me, if you look hard enough and you're willing to make up some compromises, you can find an affordable place to live. Again, you may have to walk up 7 flights of stairs. You may not have an elevator. You may have to carry your laundry to the laundromat, God forbid. And you even may have to open your own door. You may not have a doorman. But I think there's levels to things. And if you're young, if you're hungry out of college, you don't need a doorman, okay? You don't need that. You'll be fine. Patrick Bateman says, nowadays it makes no sense for somebody to buy in Northern California or Southern California on that note. So from a lot of my real estate buddies, there are deals that are actually pretty lucrative, especially in the multifamily space in California still, even though the politics are ridiculous. And the reason for that is because California is home to people with very, very high incomes and a very, very educated populace. So California has some of the greatest colleges, universities in the world, not only in the United States, but in the world. So I think so long as you have that infrastructure of a very educated populace and the median household incomes continue to go up every couple of years, I think multifamily real estate will still hold its value there. Hey, Jonas here, welcome. NPC 007 says, Tom, would you excel at real estate deals? Oh, you would excel at real estate deals. I appreciate that. I don't know if I would excel. Autumn Beauty says, Tom, why did you decide not to move to Denver? So that's actually a really good question. So let's talk about that. So the reason why I decided not to move to Denver, Colorado was because it's so far away from New York. Now, being in New York, my family's there, all my friends are there, all of my clients are there. This is Bayside Marketplace, by the way, but we're not going to walk through there today. It's just way too far. So let's say if an emergency happened and a client calls me, he's like, hey Tom, we have an outage, we need you here, or we have a deployment, we need you here, we need you to do this and that. I can't really drop everything and jump on a plane from Denver to New York. It's gonna take a long time. However, from Miami, Florida, I could literally book a plane the night before and jump on the plane, 2.5 hours, I'm on the ground at JFK, ready to get to work. So I think for me personally, just based upon where my family is, where my friends are, and where my clients are, that's probably why I chose Miami, Florida over Denver, Colorado. However, I will say it is a very business-friendly environment here in Florida, and plus I like the ocean. You know, spending a lot of my time on Long Island, I love the ocean, and Miami has some great beaches here as well. And there's no state income tax, which is always very nice. So you can see the Ferris wheel from here. But don't get me wrong, I love Denver, Colorado. It's a great town. Nothing bad against Denver, it just doesn't work for me personally, but I love Colorado, absolutely love it. Hey, Bob's number one route on the East Coast is Miami to New York City. So Bob, a lot of people have been telling me to fly from Long Island's airport, I forget the name of the airport, to Miami, but I haven't done that yet. Hey, Ryan Royal says Miami's waterfront is very lively, good to see you. John says free the weed. Yeah, Colorado is very progressive on that too, which I respect. Q-Biz says, I'm originally from New Jersey and the cost of car insurance has always been ridiculously expensive. Oh, so car insurance is expensive too. Well, I guess that makes sense, right? Because New Jersey is extremely, extremely populated. So then I would also assume that car insurance is probably very, very expensive here as well in Florida. So here's the downsides. You know, I always talk about the positives of moving to Southern Florida, but as if anything, there are downsides. The property taxes are not as bad as Long Island, but they're still high, and the homeowner's insurance is very, very high. So please be cognizant of that as you are doing your deals. So let's say if you're looking at, you know, a multifamily unit, or if you're looking at a duplex or a triplex, even a single family, make sure you put realistic expectations in your financial models about the cost of insurance, because homeowners insurance is no joke. It is really expensive. I think I pay about $4,500 a year just for homeowners insurance alone. So Dr. Longus says, yes, I remember in New Jersey we had the highest car insurance and property taxes in the United States. Yeah, so again, you know, there's trade-offs with that too. And you know what's crazy, Dr. Longus? So a lot of places that are desirable or quite fashionable in New Jersey actually flood way more than it does here in Southern Florida. because New Jersey has a ton of rivers, and whenever it rains a lot, the rivers just go gangbusters and overflow, and the flooding is really, really egregious and can really, really damage a lot of property. So where I'm in Florida actually has less flooding than in some parts of New Jersey, if you could even believe that. Autumn Beauty says MacArthur Airport and ice slip. Yeah, ice slip, I remember. Patrick says, Tom, have you ever looked into Vancouver for real estate deals? You know, I haven't, to be quite honest. So here's my overall take, and you guys let me know if you agree or disagree, because I actually want some honest feedback here. So here's my long-term thesis for real estate investment. Like, as I accumulate a portfolio of properties, in general, if there's snow on the ground, I don't think I'm going to want to acquire properties there. Maybe in places like North Carolina, South Carolina, I think those are good markets for multifamily. Georgia is a good market. Florida for multifamily, because it's a really, really big pain to have to deal with snow. I think you don't want to be in like a ridiculously hot climate. You want to be in like a normal type of moderate climate. Because I think that's going to attract a very stable type of tenant, maybe the retirees or something like that. I don't know, I just feel that a lot of people are migrating out of the Northeast, in exception of New York City and the big metropolitan areas. Let me make that distinction right now. So when I say people are migrating out of the Northeast, they're not necessarily migrating away from New York City or Boston and those big metropolitan areas, but you are going to see a massive drain from the rural areas, specifically in upstate New York and other places, because it's just a desolate wasteland, unfortunately. But in terms of multifamily real estate, I don't know, that's sort of my thesis. And look, I could be wrong, maybe I'm totally off base, but that's just what I'm seeing. Who knows? Hey, Dan Zhang is here, says, hey Tom, how was your Saturday? It was good. I got a lot of stuff done. Got a lot of work done, got a lot of reading done. It was definitely good. What about you, Dan? Patrick Bateman says, that makes sense, because when you have salt on the road, it can erode away and cause damage to vehicles and properties. Yeah, that's actually really true. I never really thought about that. That's probably why there's so many potholes in New York and in the Northeast, and very seldom do you see potholes here in Florida. This is the MetroMover. Hey, Bit of Wander, what's up? Good to see you, dude. Welcome. Hey, Amit is here, says good night. What's up, Amit? Good to see everybody. Ooh, Dan Zhang says pretty good. Got back from my Muay Thai training. Got my ass kicked today. Nice, Dan. So Dan, I think you'd like this. I went to my first ever Jiu Jitsu session, and my God, was that a challenge. Let's just say that. We'll leave it at that. Was that a challenge? But look, I think it's going to be good. I think I need something to challenge me physically. I think I have a lot of mental stimulation as I, do these streams and the financial modeling and paying attention to finance. But I also think I need a little bit more physical adversity in my life. So I think Jiu Jitsu is going to add sort of a nice wake-up call. Does that make sense? I don't know. But look, I think it went good. But yeah, it was challenging. So right in front of us here is the beautiful Miami Tower. The skyline's looking amazing tonight in Miami. Dan says, wow, good for you. Jiu Jitsu will change your life. At the beginning, your only job is to survive. Yeah, that's what the instructor said. Well, here's what he did say, and maybe he was just trying to be nice to me, because I tend to be, I am from an athletic background. You know, I played soccer in college. I used to be able to lift a lot, like really, really heavy weights. I used to be able to do ultra marathons, no problem. I could pretty much, back in my prime college days, I could run a marathon every day without even thinking about it. Right now, we usually walk a half marathon a day, and it's usually no problem, but supposedly I have a pretty good body structure for jiu-jitsu because I'm a little bit tall and my wingspan is very wide. So supposedly they said that's pretty good for like gaining leverage on opponents and things like that. I don't know, we'll see how it works out. I think it's a good skill to learn, not just from a self-defense mechanism, but also from, you know, just to physically challenge yourself and force you to be in situations where you need to overcome adversity. I think there's a lot of benefits, physical benefits, as well as benefits in the business world from doing that. I don't know, we'll see. I think there's some type of concert going on. This is the Intercontinental Hotel here. Hey, Mothman says, hey Tom, I was a 5-star athlete. I was in the paper. They have me labeled as the Mothman. I'm a legend, unbelievable. Love that. Erwin is here, welcome. So I was reading a Wall Street Journal article today, and it sort of ties into what we've been talking about a lot in the streams. A lot of US companies are now starting to reverse course and actually bring back the supply chain to the United States. So the domestication or domesticate the supply chain. So you're seeing a lot of the semiconductor companies moving a lot of manufacturing facilities away from abroad, bringing them to the United States. And I think this is for two reasons, right? I think it's for two distinct reasons. Number one, I think that the COVID pandemic really taught everybody a lesson about the apparent dangers of a decentralized supply chain and being too reliant on one part of the world. So for example, if you have a lot of your manufacturing activity coming out of China, and they are very, very unpredictable with their zero COVID policy, and they could just shut your factory down at a whim, that's very, very difficult to navigate around. Now, I don't want to get into an argument about if that's right or wrong. I just want to sort of talk about the trend we're seeing of a lot of manufacturing jobs coming back to the United States. So I think that's one. Companies want to have more control and more visibility into their supply chain. And I think number two is that the government has actually been doing a pretty good job at providing lucrative tax incentives to, I would say, entice manufacturers to come back to the United States, build plants and the like. And we've been seeing that with a lot of companies in the semiconductor space, you know, building massive facilities in Ohio. Also, I think we have news out of SK, which is a South Korean company. Oh, look at these cats. Which is a South Korean company that will be building a factory here as well. But I think there's a downside to it, which I want to be very careful how I word the downside. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But these cats look beautiful here. Hey guys. I want to pet them, but I don't want to disturb them. They're eating. Yeah, I won't disturb them. They're eating. I was going to pet them, but they could get upset if they're eating. So here's the downsides, and I think it's important to be very cognizant of the potential downsides, because I think this story could be very one-sided if we allow it to. So I think let's just state the obvious. It's good that manufacturing is coming back to the United States, because what does that mean? More jobs for American workers, right? So I think it means more job for the American workers in the short term, but the long term, if we have been paying attention to a lot of these companies' earnings reports, what is the number one thing, or I'm not going to say the number one thing, beautiful dog right here. What is the number one or number two thing that a lot of these companies have been saying they've been investing in over the past couple quarters? Well, if you guessed automation, robotics, you would be correct. So I think what's going to happen is companies are starting to notice a trend, are starting to notice this trend of workers demanding more pay, a labor shortage in the United States, and a declining labor force participation rate. So as they want to accomplish their goal of bringing back manufacturing capacity and having a full, complete, autonomous ownership of the supply chain in the United States, they're going to have to come to terms with the American worker is going to demand about 4 to 5 times the amount as somebody who would be paid in another country to do the same work. Now, I don't believe corporations are going to want to put up with that and eat that cost, so they are going to invest aggressively into automating all of those jobs away. So I'll read you a statistic here. There's a lot of nice cars out here. There's always a lot of people here. So I'll read you an interesting statistic out of this Wall Street Journal article today. It says North American companies ordered a record 11,595 robots worth about $646 million in the first quarter, putting 2022 on pace to surpass last year's record numbers, according to the Association for Advanced Automation. So I think you could sort of read between the lines there, right? I think you're going to see a lot of politicians start to jump up and down and say, see, we're starting to bring manufacturing back to the United States. But I think if you look out 5 years and you really pay attention to a lot of these companies' earnings reports, you're going to be like, whoa. Yeah, they may be building manufacturing facilities, but they're dropping almost, how much did I say again? $500 million, more than $500 million on robotics and automation. So, yeah, the American worker may have that job now, but 5 years from now, that may be a robot doing that job. And here's the thing. You don't have to pay a robot anything. A robot doesn't need paid time off. A robot doesn't need a 401k, doesn't need any health benefits. Now, not to be all gloom and doom, here's what I will say. For every job that's probably going to be automated away, there's going to be probably 2 or 3 additional new jobs that are created here in the United States, but they're going to require a completely new set of skills. So I think the United States government and employers in the United States, and probably even around the world, need to be proactive here with retraining and retooling their workforce for a modern economy, especially if we're going to have people programming these sophisticated algorithms. We're going to need software engineers, we're going to need mechanics to work on these robots. So I don't think it's all gloom and doom, but I just wanted to state the positives and negatives of the situation. So what do you guys think about that? I'll turn it over to you. Do you think it's good news? Do you think it's bad news? Do you think that's what these companies are going to do? Are they just going to automate all the jobs away? What do you think? As we look over Brickell Key, beautiful night out tonight in Miami. Hey, Gloria's here. Welcome, Gloria. Denise NYC says, hey, Tom, I love the boat. Hey, Denise. Good to see you. Yeah, so we're overlooking Brickell Key here. Gloria says, hey, Tom, I'm from Buffalo. Love that. Buffalo, New York. So I believe Buffalo, New York was home to the first Starbucks location that successfully unionized, I believe. Hey, Coffee is here. Says, nice view. Good to see you, Coffee. Ryan Royal says, I think it's a good opportunity for people to learn coding, robotics, and AI. Yeah, Ryan Royal, I could not agree with you more. So this is where I tend to agree with a particular gentleman by the name of Andrew Yang. Now, Andrew Yang tends to lean a little bit more towards the left, but here's why I agree with him. He always says you should never try to hold back technological innovation. Instead, what you should be doing is you should be investing aggressively into the American people to retrain and retool them for a new emerging economy and a new emerging workforce. And I totally agree with that 100%. So I think we're going to need to come to terms with the fact that we're not going to need as many manufacturing jobs in the United States, because we could probably build advanced robots that have advanced algorithms that will be able to do the manufacturing themselves. However, we are going to need software engineers. We are going to need techs to help service these robots and things like that. So if we could pour education funds and convince these people that are in a specific sector of the economy that is probably most ripe for disruption, if we can convince them to retrain and retool, particularly, maybe with a government subsidized scholarship program where we send them to a coding boot camp or a trade school. Hey, good to see you. With like a coding boot camp or something like that. I think that's probably going to do more for the United States over the long term than if we just sit on our hands and do nothing. Because I think as a country, we need to come to terms with the fact that there's going to be a lot of job displacement. But for every job that is lost, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 jobs that are created, but they are going to require a completely new set of skills that a lot of workers just lack, unfortunately. But Ryan Royal says, hey Tom, but people would argue that retraining people for a new industry isn't seamless. An example would be coal mines in Kentucky. Yeah, I think you're 100% right, but nothing worth doing is going to be easy, right? It's obviously going to be an uphill battle. It's obviously going to be a lot of time investment, but what's the alternative? The alternative is all of these people sit at home and do nothing and starve because they don't have the necessary set of skills. But if we can come to terms and be a realist and say, hey, we need to invest in the education, we need to invest in the job training programs so we can easily assimilate these people back into a modern workforce, I think if we sort of pitch it that way, that makes sense. But I agree with you 100%, it's not going to be easy. Definitely not going to be easy. Yeah, Soho says Tesla bot, yeah. I think that's another prime example, right? Wow, there's a lot of people tonight at the Epic Hotel here. George says, so everybody has to code to find a job? Not necessarily, but I think if we look at the jobs that are in high demand right now, there's actually a shortage of software engineers in the United States. So really what I'm saying is just maybe be proactive to sort of look at the market and identify which segments of the economy are growing and which ones are declining. Hey, Adriana is here. Says, I totally agree with the job training, but also empathy and different techniques of training need to be taught because not everybody learns the same. That's a very good point. I think that's actually probably the best point of the night. Not everybody learns the same. That is 1000% correct. I actually didn't do well in high school and college because I just don't learn well in a classroom environment. I need to be outside doing deals, learning hands-on. So that's why I didn't do good in school. It doesn't mean I'm stupid, but I didn't do well at all. So I think that's a very good point. I think that's a very, very good point, Adriana. Thank you for that. Patrick Bateman says, do you own any Costco stock? I don't. I do not. Anonymous dude says, Tom, a smart man once said, don't pick and choose, learn everything you can. We're lucky to have so much opportunity. I can get behind that. So this is the beautiful City National Bank building, or the Miami Tower. Hey, Cynthia B is here. Says, hey Tom, good to see you, Cynthia. Welcome. I love the color here at the City National Bank Tower. Beautiful. But if you guys are enjoying the stream so far, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Oh, we got a Tesla coming by. FredX is 7.9. I think that's fair. I think it's in the 8s though. I think it's like an 8.1. Deborah says, great building, love the design. So here's the good news. Ever since we've been seeing this emerging trend of United States companies bringing back manufacturing jobs to the homeland, we've seen about 350,000 new net manufacturing jobs brought back to the United States. And I think in general, that's really good news. However, the concern, again, like I stated, is over time, you know, those jobs may not be permanent due to automation, AI, and the like. Yeah, the LT prods, that's a decent amount. It's fantastic. Anytime we could bring back jobs back to the United States, I think that's fantastic. All right, everybody, check out these boats here atop of the bridge. Sometimes if you look really close at the green lights in the water, you could sometimes see fish swimming around in there. Patrick Bateman, I do not do any wholesaling in real estate. A lot of boats out tonight, I noticed. Maybe it's like a lot of party boats, people renting them, things like that. Hey, Real Talk New York is here. Good to see you, Real Talk New York. Hey, Ed Dunkel is here. What's up, Ed? So we are now crossing over to the Brickell side. It's very, very windy. Can you guys hear a lot of the wind noise in the microphone, or is the microphone pretty good at blocking it out? Oh, check out these boats coming by too. Hey, Gregory's here. Welcome, Gregory. Good to see you. Hey, Lisa Valentine says, being on a boat automatically makes you feel better. Well, these boats parked on the side here are massive. And this is the Aston Martin building, the Aston Martin Tower. Very windy tonight. So has anybody in the chat, maybe at work or maybe if you own a small business or something like that, have you ever utilized a software company called Box, ticker symbol BOX? So the CEO is Aaron Levy.
Like if you wanted to go to your apartment from Miami.
Has anybody heard of the company, number one, or number two, do you utilize the particular piece of software at your job right now? Hey, Carol H is here. What's up, Carol? Good to see you. Carol, we just walked over the bridge from downtown Miami to Brickell. We are going to be walking to the financial district. So, if anybody's heard of the very famous investor, I'm blanking on his name. You know when you forget somebody's name but you could see their face like ingrained into your skull? I'm so surprised I forgot this guy's name because he was a big culprit during the SPAC boom where I believe that he fleeced a lot of investors with his special purpose acquisition companies, which are mostly bankrupt now. No, not Warren Buffett. Chamath Palihapitiya, that's him. So back in 2015, he said that this particular company was going to be the best performer in the stock market, this company called Box Enterprise Software Company. And it hasn't really taken off. It's been dead money for the past 5 years. Now, if you go on TradingView or something like that and you type in ticker symbol BOX, you'll sort of see what I mean. It's essentially been range bound for about 5 years. However, something appears to be changing. Now, they do have earnings that are coming out relatively soon. So earnings, I believe, are in 2 days, or 3 days, excuse me. I think they come out on Tuesday. And on an EPS basis, they used to be have negative earnings or negative EPS. However, they just recently turned positive. And over the next 2 years, so in 2023 and 2024 respectively, analysts expect that they will have 34 and 44% EPS growth. Revenue growth, or top line, is roughly in the high teens, and there's a lot of institutional sponsorship, so new buys from a lot of the top institutions out there. So I think this is one we need to watch. I will be doing a deep dive into this company. I am in the process of building a financial model. I'll probably post that in the next Behind the Street newsletter, but I think this is just one to watch because as a lot of these software companies are trading well below all-time record highs, Box is trading right at its all-time high. And I think that's trading there for a reason. So be apprised for that. But I think this is one of those software companies that was way, way overhyped. The CEO is made out to be some type of a god. And I believe they have now had some activist investor come in and sort of clean up the company. And it's funny, I actually was in an interview process to be an account executive at Box, in mid-market account executive. And I will say it was probably the worst interviewing experience I've ever had in my life. Just for full transparency, these people were so arrogant, it was just disgusting, quite frankly, in the interview. And this was probably about 2017. And that was during the time when the company was not doing well at all. Not doing well at all. So just be cognizant of that. I do think it's a decent piece of software. They are growing their revenues, obviously not at the gangbusters lightning speed that I like to see. Not too profitable, but I think it's getting there. So this is definitely one to watch. We'll do a deep dive on Tuesday after the bell when they report earnings. Hopefully they give a beat and raise, so we'll see. John says buy a Rolex. I'm not a big watch guy, to be quite honest. I've never really been a watch guy. I don't really like watches. But speaking of Rolexes, has anybody seen supposedly during the pandemic and a little bit after, right, when things were opening back up, everybody was making a lot of money, stimulus checks were flying in the air, Rolexes were very, very hard to come by. But now, if you look on the secondary market, it seems like a lot of these crypto bros and people who got very lucky in the market are now forced to liquidate all of their holdings. So supposedly in the secondary market, there's a flood of inventory of Rolex watches on the secondary market. Has anybody heard of that? I was reading a Bloomberg article. I thought that was quite interesting. Mario says, what do you mean by examples? Or what do you mean by arrogance, some examples? The lady that was hiring, she's like, I forget what she asked. She asked me something so ridiculous. She's like, I'm just really not sure if this would be a good fit for you. I mean, we hire a lot of really, really educated, smart people here, and we tend to make a lot of money, so I'm not sure you'd be a good fit. Do you think you could be a good fit for this position? I'm not, would you fit in with our crowd? I'm like, lady. And I said, no, I don't think I'd fit it. Maybe it's not a right fit. And she's like, no, I didn't mean to come off like that. I'm just saying, it's a very competitive environment. We tend to be highly educated and we recruit from the top schools. I'm like, okay. Usually when you're interviewing, you don't say, oh, our employees tend to make a lot of money and we hire you can word it in a way, but anyway, that was one of the arrogance about it. Somebody says, what about an Apple Watch? So I would be open to getting an Apple Watch. However, I'm horrible with losing things, so I probably would just lose that within 20 minutes. Hey, Abstract Angel Artist says, hey everybody, hey Tom, am I late to the party? No, you're right on time, my friend. Good to see you, Abstract Angel Artist. But I've noticed like a lot of the big companies that raise a lot of money and that suffer from very, very slow revenue growth, they always have the very similar type person that works there. And I'm not trying to talk down on anybody, but this is just something I've noticed over the years from, number one, working in tech sales, and number two, over my years of scrutinizing these companies as an investor. And it's like, if you walk into these companies and you have to ask yourself, what do all these people do all day? That's a really, really big red flag. If it seems like everybody is just lounging around the office, drinking kombucha, not really getting any work done, there's a problem. And I think that was a blatant problem with WeWork and Adam Newman, making these grandiose promises and under-delivering. And, I think it reflects poorly in their stock price. Hey, Action Kid is here. What's up? Action Kid says, Tom, watches are fashion statements now. These days, everybody has a clock on their phone. I know. That's true. I think a lot of people are also like investors in timepieces and things like that. Action Kid, what about you? Do you got any? I think Action Kid maybe has a couple of APs or something like that, right? Wow, these buildings are really, really nice here. Hey, Carson says, hey Tom, that reminds me of the Icon story about firing multiple floors of people. Yeah, exactly. I think I've told that one before. But Carl Icahn, exactly. He said, and so let me give a little bit of a forecast to this. I think a lot of that stuff is unfortunately going to happen at a lot of these very high beta, frothy tech companies. I think there's going to be a lot of layoffs in particular departments that don't directly affect the revenues. So the closer you are to the revenues, the more safe you tend to be. But a lot of customer experience roles and things like that, I think there's going to be a lot of layoffs there. And we've already seen it. I think Microsoft has spent the most amount of money in company history on severance pay. And you know, if you have to look around and you wonder what these people do all day, you know, here's a test that I do to even myself to try to increase my own productivity. If you can really be honest with yourself and say, out of all the hours in the day, let's say if you work 8 hours a day, okay? Let's say if your work day is 8 hours a day. If you could be brutally, totally honest with yourself, like ruthlessly honest, and you said, okay, Tom, how many hours, actual hours of real work am I doing? Not looking at Twitter, not scrolling through my phone, not texting my mom. Like, how many actual hours of work are you doing? I think for the average person, it would be a lot less than 8 hours, including myself sometimes, right? And when I ask myself that question, now I can go back and say, okay, where can I increase efficiencies within my workday? How can I negate distractions and things like that? And I think if a lot of people ask themselves that question now, they would probably come to that ultimatum that I came to that says probably not maximizing as many hours as you should be. The ABX girl says, do you believe the layoffs, especially in crypto, may affect the rental and housing market in New York City and Miami? So ABX girl, that's a good question. These dogs are adorable here. ABX girl, did you see the news clip that came out from CNBC Make It? So if you pull up another window in the YouTube.
Maybe if we get a dog.
Hold on, I want to show you guys these dogs. Love the German Shepherds, fantastic. It's one of my favorite dogs is German Shepherd. But if you go to CNBC Make It, everybody, and there was a video that came out where they were essentially chaperoning these two particular girls that were just graduating college, and they were going through their experience renting an apartment in New York City with the egregious rents. So I think I've said this before, but here's what may happen. A lot of these landlords are getting greedy here, okay? And you guys know me, I tend to be a 100% free market capitalistic guy. I'm all about making money. We talk about it on the show all the time, but there's a but here. You can do overkill, okay? You can do overkill. And I think some of these landlords are doing overkill, and I think it may come back to bite them. And here's why. Number one, please watch that video. I knew I should have programmed it in the Nightbot, but here's why. If you look at the data of the vast majority of new apartments that are actually coming on the market in New York City, it's from people that are moving out of their existing apartments because they told their landlords that they couldn't afford the rent increase. So that doesn't necessarily mean that that particular unit is now going to rent for that higher price. You could hit a tipping point here where the market gets flooded with supply of people that just tell their landlord, hey, look, you know, I'm gonna have to find a different alternative. So it was interesting. That was actually a pretty well put together video. I did have some critiques to it, which we talked about earlier on the stream. But the majority of the new rentals that are coming on the market today in New York City are from people who have told their landlord that they cannot afford the rent increase and that they're moving out. So if the landlord just said, okay, you know, we're gonna increase your rent 5%, you know, they probably would have still kept that apartment filled. But, you know, just because a couple people get suckered into, you know, paying $5,000 a month for, you know, one bedroom apartment doesn't mean everybody's gonna do that. So I think there may be a tipping point there where consumer demand is just going to fall off and rental prices will come down. So that's what I think. Hey, Omar MD. Hey, Omar, good to see you, my friend. This is greetings, Tom. Always a pleasure to hear your analysis of the market. Omar, welcome. So Omar, I see that you have an Apple logo as your YouTube profile. So I want to get your thoughts on this most recent Apple software glitch. Has anybody heard of that? I think Sabrina Fair brought it to our attention last night on the stream, but has anybody, or does anybody have any opinions on the Apple software bug that essentially will potentially allow hackers access to your proprietary photos, to your web camera potentially? So I made sure that I updated my software today. John Roberts says, hey Tom, good to see you. NPC 007 says, Tom, market self-correct. Jimmy says, property taxes keep going up equals rents keep going up. That's actually very true. TMB says, where is the cheapest place to rent an apartment in New York City without getting murdered? So I will answer that. So the CNBC, let's just say video that came out, these two particular girls that were 23, 24 years old, they were complaining that they're looking for a 2-bedroom apartment and that it's costing them between $4,500, I think, to $4,800. But to be fair, I think we need to be fair here. The apartments they were looking at had a really nice view. They had a doorman, and a lot of them had washer dryer in unit. I mean, if you're 23 years old, trust me, you could open your own door. Okay, you don't need somebody opening the door for you when you're 23. You can bite the bullet. You could walk up 7 flights of stairs. It's okay. You don't need an elevator. So I think if people really, really wanted to save money in New York City, there's still a way to do that. If you opt for the 5-floor to 7-floor walk-up, if you're a young, healthy 21 to 25-year-old person or 27-year-old person, you can find affordable rent. I'm telling you, it's not going to be like super affordable where you're going to be like, wow, this is a great deal. But not everybody has to pay $5,000 a month to rent an apartment in New York City. If you compromise, if you live in one of the outer boroughs, if you want to live in a walk-up building, maybe you have to, take your laundry 2 blocks over to do the laundry, God forbid. Yeah, the rental prices are going to be a lot cheaper. But if you want to live in the building where somebody greets you when you walk in and they open the door for you and they bring your Amazon packages to the door, well, yeah, you're going to pay a premium for that. So I don't know, I think my advice to younger people, especially if you're moving to New York, would be just bite the bullet. Sacrifice between 21 to 27, because when you're 27 years old and you made those sacrifices, you're going to be feeling well. That's what I would say. Deborah says, hey Tom, I lived on the Upper East Side, walk-up studio in my early 20s. The neighborhood was cheap at the time. So I still think you could probably get a studio apartment. Let me press the walk button here. I think you could probably still get a studio apartment in New York for like under $2,000. It may be rather small, but I think you could probably still do it. TMB, you could live in Brooklyn, Queens. I think Queens is probably the cheapest borough. Dan Zangs is so true, and you don't really need the apartment with the amenities like a gym or a barbecue. Just join a gym and go to the park. Yeah, bang out some push-ups in the office, But Dan, would you, and I want honest feedback here, let me know if I'm wrong or not, because you guys would be surprised at the amount of emails that I get from people saying, hey, I'm actually looking for an apartment, but I'm getting really scared out of the market because I'm reading all of these fear articles on CNBC about how the average rent is $5,000 a month. Now, those articles are meant by design to scare you, so they get the clicks and they can sell advertising. And we've talked about this before. The reason why the average rent on the island of Manhattan is so much is because it is very skewed by neighborhoods like Chelsea, Billionaires Row, the Financial District, Gramercy, right? So, if you have a Billionaires Row apartment that's renting for 80 grand a month, that's going to skew the rents in Harlem. Some places on the Upper East Side. So I still am sticking by my, if you just go to Zillow right now and punch in studio apartment in Harlem or on the Upper East Side, I think you could probably still get something for like $1,900. Now, even though that's crazy expensive, this isn't, the $2,500 or, $3,000 that people are spending. Yeah, the ABX Girls' studios in Riverdale. The Bronx is just under 2,000. Riverdale's actually a very beautiful neighborhood, actually. Hey, Nico says, hey Tom, I'm a native of Fort Lauderdale. I personally think so many people moved here because of remote work ability. DeSantis is not helping out natives here, and we are getting booted out of our neighborhoods. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, a lot of people from, obviously there's always been a lot of New Yorkers that have moved to Miami, Florida, right? I think the running joke is that Miami is the 6th borough of New York. But I think a lot of people want to live here. Dan Zhang's neighborhood will affect neighborhood for sure. Best case scenario is Queens, is Long Island City. Drove up the price of the surrounding neighborhood like Astoria and Greenpoint. That's very true too. Long Island City is a beautiful neighborhood, but even Long Island City is getting very expensive. Last time I was in Long Island City, you could see all of the brand new development. And it was essentially all high-rise luxury apartment buildings. This apartment building looks very, very unique here. Hey, Keisha M says the Apple security compromise was pretty scary. Always thought Apple was safe. So I think generally Apple is still pretty safe. All you need to do is just go to settings, general, and then software update. And I think it fixes it. I think the patch is fixed. But yeah, it was definitely crazy. ABX Girls like, Tom, I'm waiting to return to New York City, but I want to await the fallout. So, okay, so ABX Girl, you're predicting that you think rental prices are going to come down, and when they do come down, you're going to make a move? I respect that. That's what I did during the pandemic. Once the pandemic hit and everybody started moving out of the city, I signed a lease on a studio apartment on Central Park South for 50% off. And that same unit that I rented is now rented for about, I think, $4,300 to $4,500. Pretty crazy. I haven't been to this restaurant in Miami, but this one looks absolutely fantastic. The smell is amazing. And everything is very, very clean here, extremely clean. Autumn Beauty says Long Island City is expensive. Any place near the water in New York City is also expensive, yeah. Kaka Silva says, Tom, why is there less people in Miami? Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't think there's less people in Miami. It's just that there's a big driving culture here. Like if you notice, everybody drives here. It's not really a walking style place. If you go to more towards like Brickell and the like, that's when you're gonna see more foot traffic. But from what I've noticed, almost every single person here has a car. In New York City, however, almost nobody has a car, including myself. So I think that may give a false impression of the neighborhood, because every time I go into the office is so packed, it's like I almost can never get a seat. But I think it's just because everybody drives here. Dan Zhang says, hey Tom, I'm moving to Forest Hills soon. I can't afford Long Island City anymore. My COVID lease is about to expire. Oof. So Dan, how much are they raising the rent, if you don't mind me asking? So here's another thing I'd say, just to sort of piggyback off of the Apple breach that happened. So Twilio is another enterprise software company. They specialize in SMS. So if you think about like when you order an Uber or something like that, you get a text message. That says, "Hey, your Uber is 10 minutes away." Okay, that is all via Twilio. If you need to pick up a prescription, let's say at CVS or the pharmacy or whatnot, 9 times out of 10 you'll probably get a text message to say, "Hey, your prescription is ready. Come pick it up." That is Twilio, right? So the thought process there is the more points of contacts that you have to the customer, probably the more revenue you could drive and pry out of that customer, giving them a better experience, which I agree. Now, they recently had a massive breach in security as well, And I want to sort of tie this back into the big macro picture that I always talk about on the streams, which is if you were looking at an investment thesis or even a career path right now, I would very highly suggest you look into the cybersecurity space. Now, we have a cybersecurity behemoth that is going to be reporting earnings later this week. That company is called Palo Alto Networks. And if I had to go back and do it all over again, ooh, this car is really nice. Does anybody know what kind of car this is? If I had to go back and do it all over again, I would apply to every single cybersecurity company that I could. But for me, since I like sales, I would apply to the account executive or enterprise account executive positions at major cybersecurity firms, and I'll tell you why. The total addressable market of cybersecurity is expanding year over year. And if you think about the overall spend from organizations, not only in the United States, but in government, so when you talk about SLED, in the education system, it's only going to expand exponentially. So if you're looking for a new career, you need to ask yourself, am I going into a particular industry that is in structural decline, or is it going to have a pretty much exponential expanding total addressable market? Cybersecurity is that. Governments, schools, state and local governments, federal governments, and even small businesses, medium-sized small businesses and large enterprises are going to only increase the amount of spend on cybersecurity pieces of software, whether they are trying to fight off email attacks, which are like those phishing emails. That's what I would do. And I think Apple is just another one of those examples. Like if Apple could get breached and attacked, well, I think in all honesty, there was just a bug in the software, but hackers were trying to exploit that particular bug. Everybody's gonna need it. So Palo Alto's reporting earnings next week. We're also gonna cover that on the stream. But yeah, I think cybersecurity, I think if you have your investments in cybersecurity or even a career path in cybersecurity, I think you're probably gonna do pretty well over the next 10 to 15 years if you had to ask me. A lot of the bright spots that I would watch are companies like Palo Alto Networks, Zscaler, CrowdStrike, and Symantec. But if you guys are enjoying tonight's stream so far, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We tend to do these live streams about 5 days per week between Miami, Florida and New York City. And we'd love to have you along for the ride. But we are now in Brickell. Hey, Destructionist says, hey Tom, I'm super late to the party. Good to see you. Hey, Dan Zhang says, Tom, I got my COVID lease for 2.8K, but now it's gonna be 3.7-ish. Wow, that's insane. So Dan, let me ask you this question. Do you think that your landlord is going to have a hard time renting your apartment for the new rent amount? Or do you think that they're already going to rent it? Because the concern here, and this is sort of what ABX Girl just brought up, I think a lot of these landlords could potentially be getting a little bit greedy here, and a lot of people are doing exactly what you're doing. They're telling their landlords to pound sand, and they're moving out. So I think it's going to be hard as times move forward for these landlords to actually fill those vacancies. I mean, there's only so many people that is going to put up with that rent until these apartments just sit vacant and prices have to come down. I mean, look, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but that's sort of one of my thought processes there. This is one of my favorite Argentine restaurants in Brickell. John says absolute Airbnb. Abstract artist says greedy landlords. So I think the vast majority of landlords, I think everybody needs to know and understand. I think the vast majority of landlords are not greedy. About 80% of landlords in the United States are actually small mom and pop business owners, such as myself. I'm technically a landlord. I don't fleece my tenants and bang them over the head. I feel like I'm a pretty reasonable guy. I keep the property clean. I provide a very good service for the value that's provided. So I don't think it's wise to sort of start a movement in the country demonizing landlords, because the vast majority of landlords out there, counter to what you would see in the media that says BlackRock is owning everything, it's not necessarily true. The majority of landlords are mom and pop businesses. Hey, anonymous dude, welcome. Mike C says, do you really want to have a tenant feel like they've been screwed? No, not at all. Nico says, I conceal carry when I'm forced to walk down there. Do you carry? No. Hey, Mike Skate TV, welcome. Susanna Herbert says, happy Saturday, Tom, from Albany, New York. Welcome to all of our friends in Albany. Good to see you. Dan Zhang says, the thing about Long Island City is that it's so popular among the wealthy Asian population. It's so weird that lots of second-gen Chinese students love Long Island City. Wow, Dan, I never knew that. Is that true? So I remember back in my college days, Dan, a lot of my wealthy Asian friends would go to New York University, and it's so crazy that their parents would actually buy them really nice apartments in Soho that would cost multi-millions of dollars, and they would throw crazy parties there. That's interesting that you mentioned that Long Island City is favorable among that community. I never knew that. Carson says, do you prefer short-term or long-term rentals as a landlord? So I think I would prefer long-term rentals, but I think in my unique situation with the property I have, it's more lucrative to do a short-term rental, especially because I can command higher rents during the winter months when a lot of the snowbirds move from New York down to Florida and the like. But I think long-term what I want to do is acquire multifamily real estate. So I don't know, anything between 100 to 150 units, like big, nice properties. I think down the line that's probably a little bit more sustainable. Hey, Abstract Angel, thank you so much for the $2 donation. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it. Hey, Action Kids says, hey Tom, it's true Long Island City is the neighborhood with the fastest growing Asian population in New York City. I never knew that, man. I never knew that. That's insane. So, just out of curiosity, why do we think that is? Is it just random, or is there a particular reason? I mean, I know Long Island City is nice, but I don't know. Seems like a lot of people are out tonight in Brickell. So if you look straight ahead, you'll see the KPMG building. It's actually doubled with the WeWork building. So I used to work out of that building, but it's way too crowded. You can't even get any work done. So I believe there's a total of 3 to 5 WeWork locations in the Miami area. I think number 1 is the 200 Southeast Financial Center. Number 2 is right here at the KPMG building. And then there's also one in the Wynwood neighborhood of Miami, which I've yet to be, or I should say I've yet to go to that one. Wendy England says, hey Tom, Miami looks like a constant party, this part at least. Yeah, I would say that this is one of the most popular neighborhoods and one of the most expensive here in Miami. I think they've nicknamed this like a mini Manhattan, so a little Manhattan. The rents here, as we talk about real estate tonight, the rents here are really egregious too. I think, a lot of these buildings, I think these two buildings in particular right here, the rents could go for upwards of $5,500, sometimes $10,000, depending on if it's a 2 or 3 bedroom here. But then again, there's a pool on the roof. I think there's tennis courts. So definitely really, really expensive. So many Teslas in Miami. The ABX girl says Long Island City and Flushing are so close, families have grown up. Interesting. Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you. D says Miami rent is bonkers. My friends had their 2-bedroom go from 3.5K to 7K in one shot. That doesn't sound sustainable at all. That's insane. I think the vast majority of people who are paying those rents are probably foreign investors or foreign people. So in my neighborhood, I've been noticing a very, very large influx of Eastern Europeans buying homes outright. So I had a particular house on my block. It was listed, I think, about 2 weeks ago, and it was closed in an all-cash deal. And the family that moved in there is Eastern European. They're nice people, but it seems like a lot of the new tenants in Miami, especially Brickell area, seem to be a lot of Eastern Europeans. Also, there's a big population of people moving here from Argentina as well. Whenever I'm in the WeWork, I see a lot of startups, and as I talk to people just getting water and things like that, a lot of them tend to be from Argentina, or at least visiting temporarily or going to school here. So it seems to be a pretty big emerging trend here, at least. James Tiger says 7K a month, I will live in my car. Not for nothing, FredEx. A lot of people in Silicon Valley are actually, unfortunately, forced to do that. People are buying RVs and living in their cars, which is crazy. DJ Easy says all cash deals, saw those all the time. I lost count of how many times I've seen that, I know. Ed Copper. So I thought Corona Queens was a lot of Colombian. I played college soccer with a friend that was from Colombia. And he used to take me out in Corona Queens, and there was a lot of Colombians in Corona Queens. Abstract Angel Artist. Oh my God, dude. One of the things I noticed about Miami is they have the 5-minute red lights that they tend to have on Long Island too. I guess we'll cross this way. Oh, cute. You know what, we'll actually walk down this way a little bit. I don't think we've ever been down this way. I always just tend to head straight. We'll head down this way. But for those of you who are just joining the chat, tonight's topic of conversation was twofold. We were talking about the good news of this emerging trend of a lot of United States companies bringing back manufacturing capacity to the United States. There's about 350,000 manufacturing jobs that has now returned to the United States. Big win, a lot to be excited about, but there's a catch, and we talked about that tonight in the stream. And the catch is that companies are noticing, are noticing a trend. I gotta get some water. And companies are noticing a trend of the labor force participation rate declining. They're noticing a trend of workers demanding higher pay, more lucrative benefits, and a better work-life balance, let's just say. Oh, this looks like a moped store. And the problem with that is this is showing up in companies' earnings reports. So for example, Amazon in Q2 and Q1 spent more money in research and development or in R&D than any previous quarters when it comes to automation and robotics. So if we think about an Amazon manufacturing facility, if we talk about warehousing, if we want to shift over to semiconductor production at some of the largest chip fabs and things like that, even though those jobs may be here temporarily, if we look at the earnings reports, they're telling investors that they're pouring multi-millions of dollars to the tune of about $500 million in Q1 and Q2 alone into automation and robotics. So I think this happened for one of two reasons. Number one, when COVID hit, global supply chains were totally fragmented and shut down. Companies realized this, they need to have more control, so they want to bring back domestic production of products and services. The only downside is if companies do that, that means the cost of paying an employee is going to be about 4 to 5x the amount. Now, companies are definitely not going to want to do that, so they're just going to make a robot to do it. So I think in the short term, this is very, very good news for the American worker because there's going to be more manufacturing jobs in the United States. But I think in the next 5 to 10 years, much of those manufacturing jobs, specifically in warehousing or semiconductor production, will unfortunately be automated away. But to flip back over to the optimistic side, usually for every one job that is destroyed due to automation, there's roughly 2 to 3 jobs that are created, but they are going to demand a completely, entirely different set of skills. So I think now is the time, if maybe you're watching this and you're in a specific industry or you have a specific job that is very, very prone to disruption, we need to start retooling and retraining our workforce for a new emerging technology because automation's coming. Amazon has invested multi-millions of dollars into R&D to building robots, and so has the chip sector. So we were talking about that, and we were also talking about a software company called Box, ticker symbol BOX. Mike C says, better robots in the US than starving wage workers overseas. I agree with that, Mike C. And look, I think it's going to probably double corporate profits over the next 10 years. Hey, Two Harbors, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the $1 donation. I very, very much appreciate your support. I don't think we've ever seen this on the stream. It looks like a soccer field here. And it looks like, what is this, maybe a rooftop bar here? Hey, Vinny Castellano is here. It says, hey Tom, Vinny and Maria sending love from Staten Island. Good to see everybody. Welcome to all of our viewers from Staten Island, New York. What's next is they have to automate because unions will bankrupt them and the robots don't call in sick. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, robots, you don't need to fund a retirement account for robots, right? Wow, check out this view. I don't think we've ever been here. You can see the Miami Tower all the way in the distance. Dan Zhang is like watching Tom stream and UFC at the same time. I appreciate that. If you guys like the topics of conversation on tonight's stream, if you scan the QR code at the top right hand corner of your screen, It'll bring you to the link of the free financial newsletter that I write for everybody. So if you want to continue the conversation as we talk about the US equity markets, emerging markets, fixed income, and the like, if you scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, usually every other Tuesday after the market closes, I will send everybody my free investing newsletter if you want to stay up to date there. I think this is a smart car, right? Hey, photos from around New York, good to see you. Brian says, Tom, do you think AI learning would be positive or negative contribution to robotic production? Brian, could you retype the comment? Oh, FedEx has left. For some reason, the chat shows up on mine. Dan says, Tom, now you're staying to practice Jiu Jitsu. You'll become a fan of UFC. Yeah, maybe. I only went to my first, I guess you can call it, what do you call it? Training session? Class? I went to my first Jiu Jitsu class, which was good. It was challenging though, very challenging, but I think that's exactly what I need. I think I need some physical adversity. You know, I think I've always tend to be pretty good with challenging myself with mental adversity, but I think I need some physical adversity here. So I think if we keep walking down here, this is going to bring us all the way to the north end of Brickell City Center. This car almost looks like a Tesla, is it? Oh yeah, it is. Maybe this is the Tesla Model S. Abstract Angel Artist is physical adversity is good for your mental health. I agree, I think so. I think so. Anonymous Dude says Joe Rogan, Jocko Willink, practice Jiu Jitsu. It's a life changer. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think I'll be okay. I think with anything, practice goes a long way. However, they did say that I should be pretty good at Jiu Jitsu just because of my height and wingspan. I don't know. We'll see. Regardless, even if I'm not good at it, I think it's good to just get in the motion of doing it for like an hour or two each day. Yeah, Destructionist says that dog was a unit. I was actually kind of scared walking by that thing. That thing was an animal. Well, literally. So here we go. This is the WeWork building. McKinsey & Company as well as KPMG is here. Dan Zhang, I'm gonna take you up on that. I may need some recommendations for gyms in the New York City area. What's my height? Around 5'2", 4'2". What do I mean? No, I'm not that short. 5'2", about 5'2". So now we are crossing South 7th Street. Strider 1239 says no way you're 5'2". Hey, San Miguel is here. Welcome, San Miguel. Good to see you, my friend. Miss Bash says you're lying. You seem 6'2". FredEx is Tom 65240. Hey, 21 Awesome is here. Good to see you, 21 Awesome. Hope you're well. Hey, NG says it's amazing how similar Miami looks to New York City. Well, this particular part I think is called the Mini Manhattan, as they consider it. But yeah, it definitely looks similar. It's a lot cleaner. I'll show you guys a quick lap around this indoor-outdoor mall, and then we'll head out. But Bob. Hey, what's next? Tom, how did the yard work go? Did you complete it? Yeah, so I've actually done a lot of work on the property. So the entire front of the house, all of the flower beds are totally weeded. I filled them in with sand, then put a fresh layer of weed mat down, and then filled it with rocks, garden rocks, and I just did that entire thing on the side of the house too. So it looks completely different. And it saved me about $3 or $4 grand doing it. And now it's very low maintenance and I'll never have to pull weeds again. So, Brian says, hey Tom, I meant to ask rather you think AI machine learning would be a benefit or negative impact once applied to industrial production. I think it's going to be a very, very beneficial impact. Where I think it could be negative is governments will come in here and screw it up. And what governments don't understand is that you should never ever stifle innovation. You need to come to terms that innovation and these advanced technologies are going to displace a lot of workers. And the answer to that is not to stop those technologies, it's to increase the education of your workforce to adapt to be able to take the new jobs that those new technologies create. And I think right now, a lot of our politicians on both the right and the left are making a big mistake by trying to stop the very lucrative technologies that are coming out in machine learning, in artificial intelligence, and the like, as opposed to pushing the populace to study and educate themselves so that they can assimilate into a new economy. If that makes sense. Autumn Beauty says, have you seen any alligators yet? I haven't, but oh my God, somebody, one of my good friends, he's actually in the chat tonight, sent me a ridiculous photo of some guy with an alligator in his truck. So my question is, are you allowed to go hunting for alligators and eat them here? It's because somebody had a massive alligator in their truck. Hey, Mark Sage says, good to see you, Tom. Looking amazing in the city. Thank you, Mark. What's next is Preach, Tom, Preach. Hey, Jared Covey. What's up, dude? Good to see you, man. Jared, how's your Saturday night? Good to see you. Vonda, this is a great answer. Yeah, so this is why I always recommend everybody pay attention to a particular investor called Ray Dalio. So Ray Dalio is the founder of one of the most successful hedge funds in the entire world, Bridgewater Associates. They are located in Connecticut. And he says if you want to be a fantastic investor, you need to study history. And throughout history, the same exact thing happens over and over and over. So what happened when horse and buggies were the #1 mode of transportation? Well, when automobiles started rolling around, there was massive lobbying saying, you don't need an automobile, you don't need this. You know, you can get around in the horse and buggy, that's fine. And now look what happened. Instead of fighting it, you could have just adapted people to assimilate into that new technology and they would have been fine. It's gonna be the same thing with anything. Like the internet, people fought that. A mobile phone, we don't need mobile phones. You don't need the internet. We have the radio. So if you just want to fight artificial intelligence and you don't want to adapt and assimilate and educate yourself, you are going to get steamrolled. That's just the reality. It may not feel good saying it, but it's the truth. And I do think that it is the government's job to some extent to step in here and provide subsidy to either provide free education or job training tools to help out the populace to adapt and acquire those skills for a new technology. And the reason why I say that is because the government wastes so much money anyway. We have all of these money, we have so much money to, drone strike innocent kids in the Middle East, to send over to the Ukraine, to send hundreds of millions of dollars in cash to evil dictators. Why don't we cut a check to our own citizens that are here and say, hey, here's some money for some free education, go learn computer science, go study. Hey, here's a 6-month stipend for some housing so you don't have to starve and live on the street. I think that's money better well spent than getting involved into foreign affairs. Now, I know I don't want to get political. I hate getting political, but I truly believe the rate that our government spends and gives to other countries, we have our own problems here. We have a homeless crisis here in the United States. We have veterans that come home from war. We toss them to the side. We treat them like dirt. How about we cut those guys and girls a check? How come we don't provide free education and free housing for them, right? To retool and retrain and place them into jobs. I'd say we should do that, but I digress. I mean, I think we just sent another $700 billion to Ukraine or something. 700 million, I forget what it was. Nowadays with the government spending, billions and millions it just doesn't even mean the same thing anymore. So this is the W Hotel and Residences, one of my favorite buildings in all of Miami. Let me cross the street here. Ooh, yeah, Mike Cease's California high-speed rail. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess the point is it seems like our government always finds money for war when we want to bomb something, but we can't find money to educate the populace. Now, I tend to be more of a free market capitalistic guy. You guys tend to know that. Tend to lean very, very conservative, so I'm not in favor of government spending at all. But I'm also a realist, and I understand that this money is going to be squandered anyway. So if we're going to squander the money, we might as well squander it to good use on people that live in the United States that are going through a tough time. Right? What if we could provide, free coding boot camps to all lower income families in urban communities? I would spend a couple $100 million on that. Autumn Beauty says, Tom, I believe there is a program like that in Detroit where the government developed a program to train residents in science and tech fields. Well, that's good news. Yeah, I think that's sort of my point, right? I obviously would not, I think the private sector should handle a lot of that stuff, but the point is, I think we need to live in reality. And we need to come to terms with the fact that the government's going to spend this money anyway. It's going to be spent. So we might as well allocate those resources accordingly to something useful. Hey, Chef Sam is here. What's up, Chef Sam? Ryan's is military industrial complex, yeah. So many boats out tonight. Hey, Fabio says hello from Brazil. Good to see you. Yeah, somebody says I like the boats with the neon lights on it. I agree. Agreed. So next week, everybody, is going to be a pretty busy week on Wall Street. We're going to hear from the Federal Reserve. We are going to have a lot of earnings. We're going to hear from Toll Brothers, which should give us a pretty good insight onto the health of the housing market, all but the higher end of the housing market. We are going to hear from Box, which is a enterprise software company under the ticker symbol BOX. And we are also going to hear from cybersecurity company Palo Alto Networks. So we'll be doing a big deep dive on all of those. All right, so we are now back in downtown Miami. We will cross the street. Yeah, the ABX girl says, hey Tom, teachers are quitting Florida in droves. Florida is the place to retire, but not to have a family unless you could afford a private school, sadly. That's what I've been hearing too. So hopefully, as a lot of businesses start moving down here, like Citadel Securities and all those big financial firms, maybe they'll do something about that, help to revitalize the public education system. But the ABX girl makes actually a very good point. From what I've been hearing, Florida public schools are not that good, from what I've been hearing. I was talking to my neighbor and he sends his kids to private school. Hey, Brad's Brain says, Tom, you'll find this interesting. I'm getting a SVC tech back who quit in October to sell mortgages. Brad, I think you told me that last night. This is definitely the sign of the times, man. That's too funny. So, Brad, that's like exactly what you call, chasing the new shiny object. Yeah, companies broad-based have had a really, really difficult time with retaining employees. You think about Amazon, even Starbucks, the front cover of Investors Business Daily, the cover story was so good. If you guys are subscribed to Investors Business Daily, please take some time out to read the cover story. It was really, really well-written piece about the unionization effort in the United States. Now, we've been noticing a big shift or a big trend towards unionization efforts at very large companies like Amazon, like Starbucks, and many speculate that this is because a lot of people from the pandemic, they've been seeing essentially a two-tiered society be created. And I've been talking about this forever. One class, you could work from home, essentially work wherever you want. And the other side is you actually have to go into these particular stores, maybe you're a frontline retail worker, and you're so overwhelmed while everybody else is sitting home and collecting a paycheck, doing a remote job. It's caused so much animosity that we have this massive unionization effort to demand a crazy amount of wage hikes, a crazy amount of benefits. Now, I won't go into whether we should be doing that or not. I actually tend to think that Starbucks is probably a little bit better than the average company at providing worker benefits, worker increased pay, and the like, because I believe that they provide free college or college assistance to a lot of their baristas. But the point I'm trying to make is that this really coincides with our topic of conversation tonight as it relates to automation. So as Amazon sees this trend of everybody trying to unionize, it's no wonder why in their last 2 earnings reports they spent a record amount of money on research and development into AI, into automating a lot of those jobs away. If you don't need the workers, there'll be no unions. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of years. We'll be covering it on the channel, but if you guys do have a subscription to IBD, definitely check out that cover story because it was really, really well written. Very, very well written piece. So this is the Ross stores, which is similar to like a Target discount. Hey, somebody from Korea is here. Says, hey Tom, be careful of the car. Thank you so much. Welcome to all of our South Korean viewers. Good to see you. Hey, NG says, I work for Starbucks in northern New Jersey / New York City on and off for 10 years. So NG, what do you think about the benefits? And sort of walk us through the, I think you get free college education, right? Through University of Phoenix. Is that correct? Ooh, guys, we're coming right up on the 2-hour mark. Guys, I gotta run, I gotta get my bus. It's a different bus schedule on the weekend, but we will be back here Sunday live from the Magic City, where we will be doing our Market to Look Ahead stream, where we'll be covering all of the major events. This guy blew a red light. Oh my God, what a scumbag, that guy. That guy almost nailed that dog right there. Ah, scum. Anyway, we'll be back here 8:30 Eastern Time, live from Magic City, where we will be doing our Market to Look Ahead stream. We will be covering all of the main breaking news events coming up on Wall Street on the week ahead, from earnings to hearing from the Federal Reserve. If you're new here, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you want to sign up for our free investing newsletter, you can scan the QR code on the left-hand side of your screen, where you will be able to receive my newsletter where I write about the US equity market, emerging markets, fixed income, real estate, all the good stuff that we talk about on the stream. But for now, thank you for joining. British Gray, thank you so much. Cindy, thank you so much for joining. Abstract Angel Artist, D.A. John, Ryan Royal, I appreciate it. FredX, Alex Arreyes, Gigi NYC, Dr. Longiz, Harry Connor, Willie, thank you. Vonda Howard, thank you so much. Bruce Wayne, War Walker, I appreciate it. Rick Wolf, FredX, NG, Autumn Beauty, all of our fantastic moderators. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic rest of the weekend. Get some rest, get some reading in, recharge, refuel, because we're back at it next week.